What's up, everybody? Trip Morgan here with Panthers Source. Had some big news today. The GM search is officially over for now. Anyway, we'll get to more on that and some other situations that could potentially happen. Not likely, but they still could happen. Ownership search is still going on available. Free agency is coming up soon. The franchise tag is officially open for teams to use. Carolina obviously has a lot. Well, not a lot, a few people. You got Latule and Norwell that we talked about last week some. We'll hit on some of that. I've got a special guest here with me today. It's Kevin Avery. But first, y'all go ahead and be sure to like, follow, subscribe. You like and follow us right here on Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube or subscribe to us on YouTube at Panthers Source. Follow us on Twitter at Panthers Source. It's all right there. It's simple. But right now, let's cue this intro and get this thing rolling. So what's up, everybody? Trip Morgan back here, and I've got, like I said, my friend Kevin Avery from the Carolina Panthers group on the phone here. He's been discussing some things that, this week was one of the topics I wanted to talk about was cap casualties. It's something we kind of mentioned, especially with the franchise tag being available now, and the top prospect for us is Andrew Norwell. And possibly losing him, but some other cap casualties that we can make room to help that cap improve, or some possibilities. Kev, how you doing, man? What's up? You been good?
Yeah, I've been doing good, Trip. How about yourself?
Doing great, man. It's been a crazy season for Panthers. I mean, we've been up here talking about it, and it's been one thing after another, it seems, snowballing ever since Dave Gettleman was fired last offseason.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely been a snowball effect. Going through all the Panther groups that I'm in and over, it's just like a lot of different feelings out there. So. Oh
yeah, and like I said, I appreciate you keeping that stuff flowing through there, the content and everything, keeping fans informed. That's what it's all about. That's what I just enjoy, sitting up here talking Panthers football with all of you guys, with Kev, everybody else, the Riot Report. Keep pounding. That's all we're here for. We just want to talk about it, and strictly legitimate stuff. By the way, we're not out here to troll and put out a bunch of false news, but it's fun to do. And like I said, I appreciate you helping everybody with that. So, as I said to start the show, Kev, Marty Hurney, GM, what are your thoughts? You're not shocked. I think we all kind of saw this coming, but what are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts was when it first was announced that he was interim GM, I felt like that by him not taking any other GM jobs, I know he had his own TV and radio show here in Charlotte. I kind of felt like he was just waiting in the wings to see what would happen, and by him having the entire 2017 season to himself to kind of show what he can do, I think he set himself up to put himself in position to get the job. Obviously, we didn't see what was going to happen with Mr. Richardson selling it the way it went down, but I kind of felt like Hurney was going to be a strong candidate to get the job.
Yeah, and I think, even after Dave Gettleman was fired, we all kind of felt like, this, Hurney's he's constantly on, WFNZ and doing the radio thing in Charlotte. This could be his back end because obviously he had ties to Jerry Richardson. And then the allegations shot up for him, and it was like, this is not good timing for Hurney. Surely the Carolina Panthers don't want to go into a new ownership with more allegations hanging around their GM. And then it came out evidence that there just wasn't much evidence against Hurney. His ex-wife's restraining order was denied by a judge, and all of a sudden the NFL fast tracks the investigation. He's cleared, and bam, not even a week later, he's right back in the Panthers office. And that's something I kind of talked about on the show last Thursday. Is I still felt like he had the front runnings, and if it wasn't him, I felt like it'd be Lake Dawson. But here we are. Ron Rivera, Jerry Richardson were both on that committee. Obviously, both of them have strong ties to Marty Hurney. We know Jerry Richardson does. Ron Rivera was hired by Marty Hurney, and then him and Rivera both helped draft Cam Newton. And I don't think it's quite a shock that Rivera would want to keep Hurney around as GM, as his guy. That was his coach he picked. Well, I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. One thing that we all know about Ron Rivera is that he's extremely loyal. So I felt like being in the position that he was put in to be a part of the selection process for the GM opening, I definitely felt like in a sense of familiarity and being just a comfort zone of knowing where each other's coming from. I think it was kind of Rivera's way of saying, okay, you gave me my first opportunity to be a coach. Now let me give you a second chance to be a GM again. Not saying that he had the final say, right, but I definitely think he had a good influence on that.
Yeah, and I think him and Rivera envisioned what they wanted to do with Cam Newton when they drafted him and where they wanted to head with the team. And I think, like you said, Rivera's loyalty, he showed it with Mike Schuler for years, even after some discrepancy, among the fan base and some others around, that everybody wanted Schuler gone. And Rivera was like, no, this is my guy. And then this year he made the switch to Norv Turner. But I think they both had in mind what they want to do. And one thing I do like about Hurney being in is how much he's talked about getting Cam another weapon to help, keep molding this offense while Cam's still in his prime. I think that's the biggest thing is, Cam's, I think he's 20. Is he 20? He's 29 now. Yeah.
I think Cam's 28.
Is he 28?
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think he's 28. Yeah.
Anyway, he's in his prime years, and we can't waste him. Obviously, he's had some injuries and setbacks here or there, but you can't waste him. And we had some great receivers and stuff on the field at times, but we couldn't get them all on the field at one time, and they flashed, and then they caught up with us. So, I think that's one thing I am looking forward to for Hurney is the draft. He normally hits on his first round. So he's missed on some of his middle round guys, but between him and Norv talking about weapons, I think they could get Cam some of those. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I'm excited about, is, Hurney has been a good scout. It wasn't too much, for the most part, scouting and drafting. It was more so dealing with contract extensions that brought a lot of the venom of Panthers fans. He recognized the fact that we need speed and athleticism on both the skill positions, offense and defense. I know a lot of fans, you know how it is. Every free agency want the big name, and every player who's cut and release, they think it'll be a good fit here. I think that we got a lot of undeveloped talent in the wide receiver core that needs time to groom. Nobody's going to come out, putting up 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, fresh out the gate. And I believe guys like Curtis Samuel, who's shooting for training camp to be back ready, Demir Bird, coming back from his injury. I may be in a small bunch. I'm a fan of Kalen Clay. I was one of the few that saw him at training camp and thought that he could be something special. I know most people remember from the drop in New Orleans with the touchdown. I get that, but I think
he also had a great catch in New Orleans, though. I mean, it was later in the game. The touchdown drop obviously cost him, but there was a great catch on the sideline he made later in the game. And look, I've had my quirks with Kalen Clay. I've dogged him on the show some, but he's also, this is also a young receiver. He's had to work his way up, but you're right. He has flashed. He had a touchdown that won us a game too on a punt return. So,
Yeah. I'm not opposed to us bringing in another wide receiver, either free agency like Paul Richardson or Taylor Gabriel, who I kind of favor. I'm not opposed to us drafting. I just don't see receiver being a huge part, as so many fans claim. Everyone has this thing about it's got to be a number one. It's got to be some. Cam works better when he spreads the ball, not having some receiver that's got to get 10 targets, each game. Now, I can understand wanting a receiver with number one, skill set. Route running, separation, hands.
Separation. Say it again. Right. Separation.
Separation. Yes. Things like that. I can understand that, but but definitely, I just think that we just need either a good mid-tier free agent veteran, someone's been in the league about 3 or 4 years who's polished. Because we have so many other needs in the draft, unless there's a can't miss like a Calvin Ridley that drops down to 24, I really can't see us using our first pick in the first round on a wide receiver. I think we have better needs for that, but I definitely am not opposed to an addition. I just think a strong offseason with everybody working together with Cam would do wonders, something he didn't have access to last year because of the rotator cuff surgery.
Yeah, and here's my thing with getting a free agent veteran type guy like a Paul Richardson. My whole thing is I love the potential of Curtis Samuel, Damiere Byrd, Devin Funchess, Greg Olsen, Christian McCaffrey on the football field at the same time. My issue is Curtis Samuel and Damiere Byrd, they flashed when they weren't injured last year, but there's no Devin Funchess is coming up on that veteran leadership type of wide receiver. Now that Benjamin's gone, maybe he can open his wings more in that leadership role in the receiver room this offseason. But having another guy come in and help show the ropes to those guys while also producing. I mean, I'm with you. Carolina's offense under Ron Rivera, I don't ever see is really going to a receiver, going 1,200 yards or something crazy. 1,000 yards is doable. But I'm with you. In 2015, MVP Cam was spreading the ball around to people he had, and everything was going right. He was healthy, and the receivers stayed healthy all year, and they had the chemistry down. And that's something I think can build if they got a veteran free agents receiver like a Paul Richardson. Even though he's only been in the league 4 years, but he still has that leadership. I mean, that's longer than Funchess has been. You get another veteran in there with him and help him grow and teach these young guys along the way. That's what it's all about. That's Jericho Cotchery was on that MVP year with Cam. I saw Antonio Corrales jumping in the comments talking about we need a Jericho receiver, and Jericho's part of that receiving staff now. So obviously he's still going to have some input. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents on the whole free agent wide receiver thing, and kind of why I wanted to go with that. Something I wanted to read right quick. I saw in the comments, and this is also by our buddy Antonio Corrales. When we were talking about Marty Hurney at GM, Kev, he jumped in the comments and mentioned that Hurney will be fired by the new owner, and it wasn't a smart move. We've seen Hurney name one company that has rehired a GM that buried a franchise. Obviously Antonio doesn't like this hire, but one thing he brought up there in that first line was something we were kind of talking about before we got on the show that we wanted to mention, is if this new owner comes in, there is certainly a chance. I mean, I was telling Kev before we went live, we were talking about this, it's not a big chance, but there is a chance the new owner can come in and say, I don't want Marty Hurney here after the stuff that he was investigated for, or he just might not want Marty Hurney and already has a guy that he likes. I mean, some of these people looking are already part owners of other NFL franchises. So they would have to sell their stake, but they kind of know how the business works a little bit. But also, like I said, the chances are slim because who's going to want to come in owning a new NFL franchise and start ripping apart a team that's been to the playoffs 4 out of the last 5 years? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think whoever comes in as owner, you're coming in with a franchise that's a legit playoff contender, and with the right pieces added, I mean, you could seriously see yourself making a serious title run. I just really feel like that, technically, like I said, the new owner could come in, buy out Marty Hurney's contract and have his own guy. But I just think that I find it, it seems kind of ironic that Rivera, Hurney, and, Cam Newton, these current contracts they all expire in 2020. So it's basically saying, okay, you got potentially a 3-year window to impress the new ownership. And I'm cool with that. I mean, Cam is now finishing his 8th year. Like you said, in his prime, but he's not at the beginning of his prime. He's not at the end, but he's right in the middle.
He's at the sweet spot. Yep.
Yeah, he's at that sweet spot. It's like Cam, you've seen every type of defense they're throwing at you. I mean, there's really nothing literally anyone could do to surprise you. Ron Rivera, I mean, when you riverboat Ron, I mean, we're winning, we're aggressive, we're not, we're going for it, we're taking the chances on getting momentum, things like that. So I just see this as an opportunity. And personally, I was one of the people that hated Hurney to death, but I wouldn't mind seeing him have a good redemption story. Everybody likes a good comeback story. And if Marty Hurney can show that, hey, I made mistakes, I admit it, I've learned, now let me show what I can do, I'm all for it, because in life, we've all been like that. So who wouldn't want a chance to redeem themselves? So I'm definitely for it.
Yeah. And look, and here's the thing also with Hurney. He gets a lot of flack for the contracts, the big contracts that put us in the cap situation that ultimately got him fired before Gettleman came in. But we got to remember, when Hurney did all this, that was right around the NFL lockout period that was affecting contract negotiations and stuff. And that wasn't just Hurney. That had a lot to do with Jerry Richardson saying, you do what you have to do to keep this core players together, the Jonathan Stewarts, the D'Angelo Williams, the Charles Johnsons, all those guys that got paid what was now a stupid amount of money at the time that put us in a bad cap space when we were losing. That was a lot to do with Jerry Richardson, not just Marty Hurney. And I think he gets a lot of the rap for that, and I don't think it's necessarily fair. But what he's done this past year as interim GM, getting rid of Kelvin Benjamin, one of the most underrated things, in my opinion, is all this stuff was going down with Greg Olson and Thomas Davis on getting on new contract extensions and whatnot, and then Gettleman was fired, and everybody's like, oh, crap. Here comes Hurney, and now we're going to extend these two guys and pay him crazy amounts of money, and that didn't happen. He gave Greg Olson an incentive bonus contract, which was genius. I loved it at the time, and you have to love it now because, Olson ended up getting hurt. If he'd extended him to a 3-year contract for, double the amount of money a year or something stupid, we would have been in a much worse place, and then he would have missed half the season due to the injury. And not that you would expect that from Greg because he's not typically injured, but I mean, he made smart moves when he came back in, and like I said before, I'm kind of for the hire.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, when the whole shakeup, I can admit my feelings was hurt. I'm a big Gettleman fan. I like the way he worked them books. Was crunching the numbers.
He was a businessman, and that's what you got to have in the
NFL. Yeah, definitely got to be a businessman. He's doing his loyalty was to the salary cap and not the players. Yeah, and I think that and when you look at the team's record, I think if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, it was like 43 wins, 26 losses, and a tie. Yeah. So, that's the best 4-year stretch. Yeah, that's the best 4-year stretch of any GM that we had. So, are we about winning? And don't get me wrong, I'm just as big a fan. I got my fan. Anybody know me? I love me some Jonathan Stewart. So anybody knows. But I took the point. Well, look, if cutting him is going to help the cap to help us be a better team, then we got to do what we got to do. Now, I ain't gonna lie, in the back of my mind, I'm hoping we sign him on the cheap like we did with Charles Johnson when we let him go. Because when we let Charles Johnson go out in 2015, that added $12 million to the cap because I think he had like a $16 million cap hit. We let him go. That put 12 back in, paid off the dead cap. Same thing I'm hoping with Jonathan Stewart. Release him. That's $3.7 million back on the cap. Work him like a 2-year deal with an option year next year or something with some incentives, like 2 years, $3-4 million, something like that. Because I just think that with what Norv's going to do offensively, using a fullback, Alex Armour, I think that Stu is still good. Still need to draft a young power back to come in, but I'm not going to throw away I'm not throwing away Stu if I ain't got to.
I hear you. He's been a rhythm to this offense for years now since Dio left. Corey Davis in the comments, I mentioned in one of your posts that if Marty wants to prove it's a new era, cut some vets who don't shine anymore like Stewart and Johnson and bring in some good vets who can start day one. Corey has said this. I do remember him saying that. And look, that's a good point. I really think at this point Charles Johnson has to be out from defensive end. I think he has to. I just see him being gone. Marcus Hicks in the comments. Thanks to Gettleman, we lost Steve Smith, Josh Norman, and possibly Greg Olson. Greg Olson wasn't going anywhere if he didn't get a contract extension. One of the reasons I was against even giving him an extension was he had 2 years left on his contract. I love Greg Olson. I'm a Panthers fan through and through. But at the end of the day, look, he's has he outplayed his contract? Yes, but he has 2 more years on it as well at the time. And I didn't think with the situation we were getting ourselves into near cap troubles again, it was the right move. I mean, he signed to at least get to 1 year left in your deal, but we worked it out. They got the incentive, and it ultimately paid off business-wise for the Panthers. But that's a good cue right into why I have you on the phone here, Kev. Ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Avery on the phone here once again. Antonio was asking earlier, I think, Carell, if that was you or not, Kev, and it is, Antonio. Kevin wants to – we're talking about these veterans being cut for cap casualties. And there's a few people, and Kev kind of just hinted at it, who he wants gone and cut, and maybe one even brought back on a better deal for the team. Kevin, who are some of those people that you had in mind that you mentioned? I've got the numbers pulled up here if you want to just run through the names.
Yeah, when I looked over at it, because I know the cap, because it's kind of in a state of flux, because as you know, what the league does revenue-wise affects how much of the salary cap will be opened up to. I know that places like Over the Cap have projected some huge number, but that's like best case scenario. So it's giving some fans some unrealistic expectations of what we got. But the list that I had a list of 7 players that if we wanted to really max out our salary cap, the first one was Ryan Khalil.
$9.6 million cap hit this year.
Yes, my notes. I love Ryan Khalil. I played center, and stuff. So, hey, I love my Hog Mollies, but he's only played 14 games in the last 32 regular season games. And, I mean, Mother Nature, Father Time, and caught up with him. And that's way too much money to pay him. If we cut him, I think that saves like $6.7 million. There's a possibility that he possibly could, restructure, but at the end of the stage, with this draft being so heavy with good prospects on both sides of the line, offensive and defensive line, if they can work out something, cool. But I'm not going to shed a tear if he leaves, because I just think his time is up.
Yeah, and he's been banged up really the last 2 seasons. He's been battling some injuries at his age. He's got the veteran leadership. He's Tyler Larson, the Panthers just extended him to a 2-year deal, and he kind of stepped in and played some center for Khalil and did fairly well, I thought, in his spot coming out of nowhere. But definitely you would and he's already announced he's retiring after this year, along with Thomas Davis, 2 longtime Panther vets that are obviously loved fan favorites. And all pros, Pro Bowl guys, they've earned their keep, they've earned their contracts. But you would hope maybe he could restructure for this last year. Normally, contract deals work where if he was going to play a couple more years, the Panthers could re-sign him to a different deal with a new bonus and stretch that bonus out over a couple years to lower that cap number. Well, if he's going to play, this is his last year of his contract. If he's going to play this year, they don't really have if this is going to be his last year, they don't really have that chance. So restructuring for this last year, something might be able to work there. I'm no cap expert. I just know some of these basic things, but there might be something he can do there. And I'm sure, I would hope Hurney and them are going to look at that, because like I said, he is in the top. He's number 6. He's a 6th highest cap hit on the Panthers payroll this year, right under Mario Addison and just above Thomas Davis, who is 7.7. And I think, was Thomas Davis one of your other names?
Thomas Davis was my last resort out of my list of 7. Right. I just think that of all the guys that I had on my list, I think he can still produce at the highest level at his position. If there's somewhere we can work out that 7.7 to be down, because if he's going to be playing a much reduced role, he should get reduced role pay. Again, it's a business. I understand all the sentimentals. Overcame 3 torn ACLs to the same knee, came back, played at a pro level. I get that, but at the end of the day, you want to recreate your core players and have it focus on them. So if they can somehow drop that down a few million, I'm cool, but he would be the last one that I would want to see released. The next one I had after Ryan Khalil was Charles Johnson.
Yes.
God bless him. Yeah. Charles Johnson, the tread on his tires is gone. I haven't seen I can't remember last time I seen a Charles Johnson sack. I mean, he's been pretty much been reduced to a solid run stopper. I mean, but his motor keeps going. I won't, but he gets quarterback hurries and stuff, but we're just not getting that other sack artist on the opposite side of Marcus Addison that we need. And I'm a bit Wes Horton fan. I'm hoping this will be his opportunity to step up at that spot. But Charles Johnson was my other cap casualty. I already mentioned Jonathan Stewart earlier. Yep. As well. Hopefully, like I said, he can come back on a cheap deal like we did with Johnson a couple years ago. A couple of guys that also were looking at, I was looking at Russell Shepard.
Yes.
Again, I look at the whole picture. I mean, he's part of the reason why we got the number 10 special teams. A lot of times on the All Access 22, he was open a lot of times. Cam never saw him. I know people look at his stats and think, but for that type of money, either restructure or get cut. That's just a lot of money for someone that's possibly now a fifth, maybe even sixth option, depending on, where we go. That's a lot of money to have at the bottom of your depth chart.
Yeah, Russell Shepard's been, look, he was great. One of the biggest reasons we signed him was obviously to come in and help the receiver room, but also was special teams play. And he was great as a gunner on the punt team. He made a lot of plays, was getting down the field there, and he had the one touchdown, the first touchdown of the season for the Panthers from Cam Newton against the 49ers in week 1. But after that, he was non-existent outside of special teams. And I'm with you. I think he is definitely a guy that the Panthers should look at if they're going to add, especially if they're going to add another veteran receiver to go along with Curtis Samuel, Damiere Byrd. But at the same time, you've got to have those solid special teams players too. So maybe he's a guy that they can restructure too. So if we look at these, if we just add up these few cap hits we talked about, and they were able to restructure, I'll start with the guys we were talking about letting go, and that was, or let's see, where did Charles Johnson go? He was $3.1 million. Mm-hmm. And I think I think that should be an outright cut. I don't think it should be a bring back type deal.
Nah.
That could be 3.1. You got Russell Shepard's roughly. He's at 3.5 at a cap hit this year. If you restructure him for half of that, we'll say, okay, so there's $4.5 million. Say you restructure Ryan Khalil and his cap hit goes from 9.5 to, I don't know, 7. Let's just shoot on the high end there. So you save $2 million. There's another 7. That's right at $7 million right there.
Right.
And then you were talking about Thomas Davis. I don't think he's gonna get restructured, mainly because he was just signed to this new deal this past offseason.
Right.
And Marty Hurney was the guy that did that, even though Gettleman had the framework laid out. But so you're talking about $7-8 million, and right now Carolina's estimated cap space. All this is brought to you by Spotrac, by the way, Spotrac.com. Handling all of this. They have the Panthers' estimated cap space at $15.2 million right now. So that would push you roughly somewhere between $20 and $22 million if those numbers fell out. Guys, we're just obviously throwing darts at a wall right now just for thought's sake. But it's something to think about when you've got a guy like Andrew Norwell out there, and the franchise tag for him is $14 million. Carolina just can't afford to do that. I don't see Carolina using the franchise tag this year.
Nah, definitely not on that. And two other guys real quick, because like I said, I had a group of 7.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had also looked at Mike Adams.
Okay.
That's like, if I'm not mistaken, $2.4 million or something. I know you got the list.
Yeah, he goes 2.4. Yep.
Yep, and the last one was Fozzie, Whitaker, like $1.5 million. Yep. Again, he's 29. This is a deep running back class. We know McCaffrey's set. Stewart we let go. Cameron Artis-Payne, the big enigma. He's supposed to have been the successor.
The big enigma. I love that.
Right. Yeah, but. Part of his own per se, he did get a chance. I mean, he had a great game against Miami on the Monday night game. He had a good little showing at Tampa, a little bit of spot duty. He did get his last start at Atlanta. Had the 2 bobble snaps, wasn't fumbles, but, some people like, he's not ready. But, I just think that if these 6 players, not including Thomas Davis, was to be cut completely to max out the most cap, I would not be mad, because when you look at the draft and the prospects, I mean, the draft is being built heavy in offensive linemen, defensive backs, and running backs. And if you look through the list of people talking about, offensive lineman, Ryan Khalil, possibly losing Norwell, so good chance to pick up some guys there. Defense line, I just mentioned Charles Johnson, Star Lotulelei, with his situation, so we can replenish there. Defensive back, I just talked about, Mike Adams. Strong safety has been. Yeah,
we need to hit that. We need to hit that. Get young.
The last strong safety I remember us having that really just played lights out for us was I don't know if you remember this name, Chris Harris.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Chris, I call him the nightstick because when he hits you, it's like he beat you, man. It's like that dude was a fumble machine. Oh my God. Yeah, I love Chris Harris, but it's like.
And if you can get that back with the secondary, with the front 7 Carolina's posted over the last few years, man, it would be incredible, especially back there. Kurt Coleman didn't have his best year this past season either, but I feel like he can get back to that. And I really think a lot of the secondary issues came from Steve Wilkes's man coverage scheme and having to kind of change to that from zone.
Yeah, that problem with the secondary is a couple of different layers. I was, be chatting with people about it. Combination of inside pass rush. Yep. We know Kawan Short can turn up. Here's my thing about Starr. I made it known Starr is a space eater. He's that nose tackle. He's that one that's not going to put up those sexy stats, but what he does is equally important. He keeps, these centers and guards off of, Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis. That's something that's invaluable, but once Short had his breakout year in 2015, Starr wasn't getting double teamed that much. And my thing is this: when he's getting single block, he's not really making a lot of plays like tackle for losses, just clogging up the lane. I'm not seeing him on one-on-one being able to take over the game because he's not getting double teamed every game like he was his first couple of years.
That's going to Kawan Short, yeah. And that's the difference between, and that's the thing with him and KK. KK is more of a pass rush. He's going to beat you and get to the quarterback inside, whereas
he's that 3 technique penetrating defensive tackle.
Right, where Starr is more of like a true nose tackle and is there. Like you said, clogging up lanes. He's not always going to get to the quarterback, but he is a Luke Kuechly's dream. Between him and KK, I can tell you right now, if Luke Kuechly had the money, he would pay Star Lotulelei to stay on his team with Kawan Short. But it's like you said, $14 million a year worth? No, it's not going to happen. But I also think there are teams out there that will get in a bidding war for him that Carolina can ill afford to do.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was looking at on Spot Track here the calculated market values. I mean, they're saying Star's market value is about $8.4 million. That's way too rich for us, especially when we got, one of my personal favorites, Vernon Butler Jr. sitting and waiting on the side. That's under contract for us for the next 3 years.
And I've seen a lot of people talk about that. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that he's more of a 3 technique type of guy, but when you go back and look at the film when he was playing the nose position, I mean, with his size and quickness, he was either moving the guy out the way to get in on the play or he was clogging up the lanes. Again, when he was single team, he was affecting the play. So, and when you got guys like Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, and Jameis Winston out of the division,
got to get him off the spot.
Yeah, guys who can create havoc in the A and B gaps from a defensive tackle point, those are the guys that's going to affect the game. It's just, point blank simple that way.
Yeah. The NFC South should have 3 MVP quarterbacks playing for the 3 of their teams right now. And that's just how it is, outside of obviously the Buccaneers. And you have to get those guys off their spots. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, that's the name of the game with the QB, like Tom Brady or anybody else. You have to get them off the spot.
Yes, I'm curious to see what a starting tandem of Short and Butler Jr. Would possibly do because I'm not saying that it's not important to occupy blocks, because I'm like this: if you're going to single out Butler, he's going to interrupt your play. But if he, and I think he's going to have to do that to earn the double team. Once he earns the double team, either the linebackers or short going to make the play. So it's basically going to be like pick your poison.
Right.
Yeah. So that's just what I think when it comes to that.
And, I think it was Marcus Prime Hicks who jumped up here and said earlier we were talking about Jace too, saying, or you just draft another power back. And here's my thing. I saw Josh Norris bring this up on Twitter, and I've been feeling the same way. As I can see Jonathan Stewart going either way. I can see the team, finally cutting ties with him and trying to move on and maybe drafting a guy, because I just don't know. They don't seem ready to let Cameron Artis-Payne take over that role yet. But I could also see them wanting to keep Stu because he's been such a big part of the rhythm of this offense. And they're gonna want to use Christian McCaffrey as that receiving back like they did last year, and not the every down back, because he's not going to be. The threat is larger if you have the guy that can pound it out there and the guy that can run out of the backfield and catch it, or beat you on a quick toss play or option or whatever it is, triple options and stuff like that. And I think I could see it going either way.
Yeah, I like what Noah Turner said in his interview when it came to Christian McCaffrey. He's like, it ain't that McCaffrey's not talented enough to run the tackles because he's out of his hand, but it's just not smart business to make him do that on a routine basis. Yeah. And I think that, with the play calling last year from Mike Shula, that it was just simply, running them up the middle. Like, I don't know if you ever see me post the stats on it, but it's like the Panthers ran up the middle 58% of the time. The Panthers faced an 8-man front 51% of the time. They faced a 9-man front 23% of the time. So teams were pretty much just loading up the box, and they pretty much know what we're going to run. Like, how frustrated was it that we was in 2nd and 12 and 2nd and 14s on such a regular basis, because they know Panthers going to run that inside zone to Stu up the middle. It was just it was just frustrating.
Yeah, and that's something else. A lot of people complained about with that, and that's one of the things that I've seen a lot of people talking about. Andrew Norwell, one of the defenses they throw out there about not re-signing him or trying to figure things out with him and keep him, is that if he's such a great guard, why did we struggle running between the tackles? And those stats you just mentioned has been my rebuttal every time, because we're running up the middle against 8 and 9-man boxes. I don't care if you have 2 of the best guards, which, we just signed Trey Turner. He's a Pro Bowler at a young age. I don't care if you have both of them. You're not only going to do so much when you can't guard so many guys. You know what I mean?
It's a numbers game. You think about the type of personnel we like to run. Out of the 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. So that's 6 blockers there. Okay, if we go up and run out the 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, okay, that's still 7 blockers. We're still outnumbered anywhere from 2 to 3 blockers, depending on the formation. So even if all of the 5 offensive linemen and the 1 or 2 tight ends, manhandle their blocks, there's still 2 more defenders free. And it was just that's looking at it behind the scenes, outside of, that's where watching the All 22, which I love watching the coaches film. Oh yes, pretty much showed that. There's a reason. And
if guys, anybody watching this, if you've ever thought about purchasing or trying the All 22 film from NFL.com, I would strongly recommend it. You can learn if you actually take the time and sit down and watch how these plays develop and watch them over and over and see these things that everybody, like analysts and everybody, look at on Twitter and talk about, and try to start learning it. You can really learn a lot about football plays and breakdowns doing these things. And of course, watching the analysts break them down in their videos. But you can see all these little details. If you've been on the fence the last couple of years about it, or last year, I would recommend you buying it. Just bite the bullet. It's not that bad. You can even do it monthly. It's totally worth it. And it's not just that year. It's past years that they've had it as well, which you get access to. So,
right. Yeah, if you're a film junkie, if you want to use more than your eye test,
yes,
it's definitely a great tool to definitely use.
Because as fans, in the middle of the live game, we can get caught up looking at a bunch of stuff on the field, but it's much nicer after the game to be able to have 2 different angles and sit there and actually slow it down and break it. So
exactly.
But I'm gonna hit a few of these comments right quick, Kev, before we get out of here. Mike Strib, this is a good comment I like by Mike, asking why we don't do the free play when the defense jumps off sides, hike the ball and throw it deep. This drove me up the wall this year. And Cam is one of the best, pre-snap, like fake call, like hard count QBs in the NFL. He constantly gets defensive lines to jump. And it seems like every time the ball just sits there and we just take the penalty instead of like, hey, hike it and chunk the damn thing deep. Like at that point, it doesn't matter. Of course, we got screwed this year on one of those.
Yeah, tell me about it. I think that, but one of the things, if you take back, we're not coming up to the line of scrimmage till there's about 10, 11 seconds left, and we got to read defense. Man, the cost of the defense pretty much know at 0 or at 2 or 1 the tee off. Like there's no time to try to fake the snap count because we're in a rush. That's one of the things that I hope with North Turner that we're able to iron out is getting to the line with 15, 20 seconds left, and be able to do some things.
Absolutely. And Marcus Prime Hicks, one last time. Guys, I hate to say this, but we need to steal a page from the hated Saints. Ingram was the power. Kamara was the versatility. We have CMC for versatility. We need a power back, kind of hinting back to what he was talking about earlier. And I agree, and that's one of the reasons I'm on the fence about what they're going to do with Stu, because if you can't, and I think our buddy, my buddy Den with Keep Pounding, him, Bobby, and Chris were all talking about this on their podcast this past week, and I completely agree with them, is you can't cut Stu right now before the draft and then hope to find that back in the draft unless you already have something lined up. If something happens with Stu, it's going to be after the draft, in my opinion. And I just think that's completely how you should do it business-wise. You're not going to let the guy go and then get to the draft and the guy you were looking to get is gone and you're stuck. I mean, you have Cameron Artis-Payne, but like I said, they just haven't shown the commitment to Cap. Of course, he did get some playing time this year, and he did well with it, as he has in the past. But they just haven't seemed to show the commitment to moving forward. Maybe this is the year, maybe it's not. We'll see. There are some good, deep, round running backs that you can get good value with coming out in this draft.
Yeah, especially with this being Cameron Artis-Payne last year.
Yep.
This is technically Stewart's last. So 3 of our 4 running backs are in their final year. So, regardless of who's cut, who stays, it's definitely going to be some turnover in the running back locker room.
Yeah, we got, there's so much off season left. It's way early. The combine's next week. I can't wait for that. A lot of stuff coming up, Kev. It's gonna be a whirlwind on top of all the owner stuff as well. So that's what I'm waiting to hear on the ownership. But hey, March 14th, that's the beginning of free agency. Agents can start talking to other players on March the 12th. Yep, that tamper period.
Yeah. So again, if our best deal is not good enough to keep Norwell, then, I wish him the best. I'm torn because I recognize the value of his play, but at the end of the day, we gotta keep building a team. We can't sink all our money in just one place and then wonder why we, not doing any better,
That's the name of the game, man. That's why the NFL, the salary cap makes the NFL an ever-changing league every, year to year, and it's one of the reasons I love it. It's frustrating as a Panthers fan because you can't keep everybody you want to keep, but as a fan of football and the NFL and pros, it makes it, you don't know what to expect year in and year out, really. And you saw it with us in 2015. Came out of nowhere, boom. Everybody thought the season was over when KB went down, went 15-1 to the Super Bowl. And then this past year, the Eagles coming up, they had kind of had some young groomers they were working up, but it just changes so much year to year, and I love it. That's part of the cap, but I think it's a good thing. So anyway, guys, unless y'all have any more comments, let's see, Marcus Prime, I think that's the biggest reason why Hurney got the job. Free agency is coming up, and he knows the team the best, and I completely agree with you, and that's going to be the telling time for a lot of fans who have been doubting Hurney coming back and not wanting him is free agency and what he does and how he signs players to contracts, if he signs anybody. But that's soon to be found. So. And
another thing that I think fans need to be aware of with Hurney is that throughout the season, him and the scouts been putting together the draft board and free agency. So, you know, for someone brand new to come in and try to do that, I just think it'll be rushed. And I mean, it's, you know, like I say, I'm pulling for Hurney to have a redemption story. So I hope you don't make me look stupid, because I was definitely on the I hate Hurney train. Had a chance to shake his hand at training camp. I passed on it because I was still in my feelings.
Oh, salty.
Yeah, like salt and vinegar chips. I was, but
oh man,
he's the man now. So let's see.
Yep. Well, guys, like I said before we start the show, y'all can like and follow us right here on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at Panthersource. You can search us up in Facebook. It's at Panthersource as well. Twitter at Panthersource. And then YouTube, you can subscribe to us. We post everything up there. I'm going to be doing some more updates and separate videos on YouTube. So if you subscribe to that, you'll get those. But it's that simple. Kevin, thanks again for joining us, man. It's always good talking to you. I know you know your football and stuff, and, of course, you know your Panthers. So it's always good to talk to you, and I'm glad you finally were able to jump on the show with me. Yeah,
and I really enjoyed conversating with you as well. We've been on each other with the Panthers for years. It was good to have this opportunity. And if you ever want to invite me back, hey, I'm here.
Oh, you know I will, man. You know we got a lot of Panthers football to get to this offseason. It's gonna be a roller coaster this year. So. But anyway, guys, we'll catch y'all later. Keep pounding, and maybe we'll see Julius Peppers signed to a contract this week. Hey, keep pounding, guys.